What's up, guys? We are back with a big week 5 of college football picks for Saturday, September 28th. We have a great video for you today covering 13 games and giving you my best leans on the side and over-under on each game. If you want to win all of your bets here in week 5, hit that like button. It's good luck and shows support for the channel and all the hard work we're putting in here every single day. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our daily content and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the value of the early lines. You can now also sign up for a channel membership by clicking the little join button right below the video. Members get exclusive early access to all NFL and college football videos and get their names up on screen just like right now. I really appreciate the support from all of you. Seeing that badge next to your comments absolutely warms my heart. Our videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. We have a team of experienced cappers over there for every major sport, currently covering MLB, NCAA Football, UFC, and the NFL. NCAA Football has been one of the most profitable sports over the years, and we have a seasoned expert capper over there that has been killing it so far this season. He just went 7-3 last week. Click the link in the description if you're interested in signing up, and also to join our free email list to get the occasional free or premium pick straight to your inbox. And also there, we will keep you updated on our $100 to $10,000 challenge with new bets going on this weekend. Comment below with any bets you're looking at today, and we will give you our best advice on all of them. We are committed to responding to every single comment every day, so let us know anything you want to say about my picks, these videos, or anything you see here. As always, our favorite picks will be in the pinned comment down below. Now let's get into our first game of the day. We've got Kentucky going on the road to take on Ole Miss. Kentucky comes into this game. They've had a pretty crazy season so far, guys. They're 2-2 on the year. They didn't have a great time. I mean, they started things off well with a cupcake win, obviously, then losing to South Carolina, a tough blowout loss there, 31-6. Things looked really, really dark, but they followed that up with a crazy, crazy game against #1 Georgia that they actually should have won. They ended up losing by 1 point, guys. They lost 13-12 in that game. Crazy, crazy stuff. Last week, they had a get-right spot against Ohio. They won that cupcake game 41-6, but in their game against Georgia, we saw some pretty interesting stuff. Obviously, this defense has what it takes to be very, very good. The offense is the problem, guys. Yeah, I mean, the quarterback, it's kind of been like a rotating situation. Their quarterback situation, not great, obviously. They only passed for 114 yards against Georgia. The running game, though, looked very, very impressive, so that's something to build on for sure. I mean, yeah, definite good stuff there. I mean, 170 yards. It was on 45 carries, and some of those came from the quarterback, but Vandegraff wasn't looking amazing running the ball, so yeah, we'll see what they do in this one. I'm not maybe expecting miracles from the Kentucky offense, but I do think it's an offense that can be slightly better than some people are, projecting. If they can run the ball, at least that lets them control the clock and give their defense plenty of time to rest, and that allows the defense to be absolutely dominant when they're out there on the field. So yeah, we'll see what they can do. They got to figure something out offensively. That's the real question. Like, can they figure it out? And they did put up 41 points last week against Ohio, so good stuff there. We saw the passing game look much better, the running game looking absolutely dominant in that one. We even had some receivers step up and put up some decent numbers. I mean, Dane Key put up 145 receiving yards on 7 receptions, so very, very good stuff there. And the defense obviously looked amazing once again, and that's what they're really going to be leaning on this season, is how well can that defense perform. And I don't think there's any reason to think the defense is necessarily going to have a terrible time here this week, even though they're going up against an undefeated opponent. Kentucky's taking on Ole Miss in this game. They're number 6 in the nation right now. Obviously have not lost a game yet this season, but when you look back at their schedule, they haven't really played anybody too tough. I mean, I think probably their toughest opponent this year was going at Wake Forest, and they won that game 40-6. All their other games haven't really even been close to competitive, and there's really not that many conclusions that we can draw yet about this team. They're getting a lot of respect there from, the AP poll. Like, great, congratulations. I care about that a little bit, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that's the main thing here. Last week against Georgia Southern, guys, they looked very, very good, obviously winning 52-13, so, great, but it was against Georgia Southern, so let's not freak out too much. We saw Jackson Dart. He looked very good. Great name, obviously. 22 of 31, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, almost 400 yards passing, so yeah, elite stuff there. The running game looked very good in the, the attention that it got, which wasn't an insane amount, but, we got to give them some respect there, got to give them some kudos. Definitely think they're, going to be a good offense. I don't think that's too much of a stretch, but how good are they going to look against an elite defense? We really don't know yet because they haven't faced a good defense yet this season. In terms of their defense, the Ole Miss defense, they looked good last week for sure, only giving up 157 yards through the air and 38 on the ground. They absolutely dominated in the trenches, but it's against a very, very overmatched opponent. So like I said, guys, it's very difficult for us to know what exactly to expect from this team when they come into this game completely untested. They They are getting to play at home, so that helps for sure, no doubt about that. But what can we really expect to see here going against an actual elite defensive team? It's going to be a big test here for Dart. He's had 4 games to, ramp up, get comfortable out there, dominate some terrible opponents, but he is going to be dealing with a whole different level of speed and a different level of size out there in this game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Ole Miss can adjust in this game. And looking at the numbers for this one, we've got the Rebels, Ole Miss, they are minus 16 in this one. We've got an over-under of 52.5. Kentucky is 3-1 against the spread this year and 3-1 to the under. Ole Miss is 4-0 against the spread this year and 3-1 to the under as well. So given those trends, I would say you want to take a look at that under 52.5. I think we could see some defense in this game for sure. This is not going to be Ole Miss just running it up and down the field or throwing it up and down the field or doing whatever they want out there. That's not going to be the case. So in general in this game, guys, I think the side is looking like a spot to go with Kentucky, and the points in this one, 16 is a lot of points. Kentucky is 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 September games against ranked opponents. Ole Miss is 0-3 against the spread in their last 3 games against conference opponents. So a few trends there to back up this Wildcats pick, and I think it's a pretty good spot for them. I also think, like I was saying, that you want to take a look at the under here given those early trends from these two teams and the fact that Ole Miss is going to be going up against their first real defense of the season. Next up, guys, we've got one of the more exciting early games. We've got Oklahoma State, number 20 Oklahoma State, going on the road to take on number 23 Kansas State here. Very exciting game. Oklahoma State trying to bounce back from a tough loss last week against number 12 Utah. They lost that game by 3 points, 22-19. They put up a pretty good fight. It's not even their first real test. I mean, they did have a game against Arkansas, which they won 31-39 there in week 2. But against Utah in their last game, we did see some good things for sure. They did need a comeback. They scored 16 points there in the fourth quarter to make this game much closer. Bowman didn't have the best time out there, getting picked off twice, only completing like less than half of his passes, so that's not ideal. And the running game didn't really do what they were hoping it would do. I mean, Ollie Gordon II did have 42 yards on 11 carries, so not a terrible day, I guess, but definitely not what you need from your running game to take some pressure off a quarterback that was clearly struggling. So we'll see if he can bounce back a little bit in this one. Not like he's going up against the easiest opponent though once again here, so they're going to need better stuff from him. Their defense, they've got to be pretty pumped with how they looked. I mean, 2 interceptions in that game. They did really struggle against the run, and Utah was not letting them get away. They were just running the ball every time. They just pounding it in there, doing everything they can to make it tough on this team. And they did generate, I mean, if your defense generates 3 total turnovers in a game, even in college football, like that's a pretty big boost. You should be in good shape to win that game. And like I said, they did only lose by 3, and that's against a very solid opponent. So I don't think they have a lot to feel embarrassed about in that one, but clearly some work to do there improving against the run and some work to do there at quarterback. They need Bowman to look quite a bit better out there, and it's not like Rangel looked better, as the backup coming in. So definitely got to get Bowman finding some better options out there. Needs to be hitting those open receivers, and we'll see what they can do in this one going up against Kansas State. Obviously a tough opponent. They're also coming off of a loss. They just got obliterated by BYU last week. It was at BYU, not an easy place to play. They lost 38-9, a huge letdown, a predictable letdown after their big blowout win over then number 20 Arizona, where they won 31-7. So against Arizona, we saw things look very, very good for Kansas. Obviously, a dominant performance. The passing game looked great. Avery Johnson was killing it. He was also killing it on the ground, running for over 100 yards, and Giddens looked good in that one as well. And they really, really looked good defensively against Arizona. So really no holes in the armor there for Kansas State in that game. But the very next week, going to BYU, like I said, tough place to play, and it was a very tough game there for Kansas State, guys. The Wildcats did not have a good time. The passing game got picked off twice. Avery Johnson was not, he was good running the ball, but not as good through the air at all. Only 130 yards passing and picked off twice is a tough look, and the defense could not deal really with the BYU passing game, and they had some trouble with the run as well, and just a really rough game there for Kansas State. So they're going to be trying to right the ship here a little bit, and looking at the numbers, guys, we've got Kansas State. They're the favorites at home, -5 in this one. We've got an over-under of 57.5. 57.5. Looking at the numbers for these two teams, Oklahoma State 2-2 against the spread this season and 2-2 to the over/under. Kansas State 1-3 against the spread and 3-1 to the under. So guys, in this one, I'm definitely looking at taking Kansas State at home. Being at home, big advantage here. The home team is 6-0 against the spread the last 6 times Oklahoma State and Kansas State have played each other. Definitely leaning towards Kansas State. I think they're the better team kind of across the board anyway, and I'm expecting big stuff from Avery Johnson in this game. So go ahead and give me Kansas State here -5. This one's definitely going in the pinned comment. And if you wanted to take a look at that under 57.5, I suppose you could, but really not a spot that I'm incredibly interested in. I think the side is the play in this one. Next on the docket, guys, we are looking at number 15, Louisville, going on the road to take on number 16, Notre Dame. The Cardinals come into this game, guys, kind of untested. I mean, a 31-19 win over Georgia Tech. I guess that's, a decent win there, but 3-0 so far this year, definitely positive stuff. And they're up to 15th in the nation in their win over Georgia Tech last week. We saw some pretty encouraging things overall. I mean, we did see Tyler Slaw go 2 touchdowns, 13 of 19 passing, so very good stuff there. The running game didn't really get going, and that's a bit of a concern for us there for sure. Definitely something to keep an eye on. The running game you have to have some sort of running game even in college, I feel like. And while the passing game looked great, I mean, Ja'Cory Brooks was nuts out there. 4 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown in the receiving game. Very good stuff. The defense was decent. They didn't allow a passing touchdown, but they gave up 312 passing yards, and they didn't completely stop the running game. I mean, they weren't terrible against the run, don't get me wrong. They gave 2 running touchdowns, but generally speaking, I'm more concerned about how they looked against the run. They only generated 1 turnover, which is fine, but maybe not elite. My questions about Louisville mostly hinge around their defense. So we'll see how they look defensively in this game. Not going up against the toughest offensive team here, necessarily taking on Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish come into this game fresh off of a 28-3 win there over Miami of Ohio. They kind of messed around a little bit in that game, not like in week 3 where they destroyed Purdue after that, terrible loss that the Fighting Irish had against Northern Illinois. But last week against Miami of Ohio, they did mess around a little bit in the first half. They were winning 14-3 at halftime, so not that bad. And then coming away with a 28-3 win. Not enough for the win and cover, but very close. They dominated in passing defense, guys, giving up only 119 passing yards and having 2 interceptions in the game. They forced a total of 4 turnovers. So once again, guys, defense remains the strength here of Notre Dame. That's going to be where they hang their hat this season, and they're going to need all of it here down the stretch because the offense not really impressing me too much. Riley Leonard, 154 passing yards and a touchdown. Okay, fine. At least he didn't throw an interception. In the running game, though, he looked insane. 12 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against the speed of Louisville this week. Obviously, he doesn't have to go quite so nuts, but I think, you got to figure out a way to run more of a real offense here. When your top receiver is getting 60 yards on 4 receptions and 1 touchdown in, it should have been a blowout game, I'm going to start asking some questions about your offense. But really, guys, I don't think they're in a terrible spot, and I do think Riley Leonard is a monster out there. Just got to find a way to get the ball down the field a little bit more. So really, guys, the defense is what you want to focus on for Notre Dame, and they were elite last week, and they've been elite all season long. So expecting good stuff from them in this game. Looking at the numbers for this one, guys, the Fighting Irish are -6.5 points playing at home in this one. Louisville, they're 3-0 against the spread this season, 2-1 to the over. Notre Dame is 2-2 against the spread and 3-1 to the under. So some counter, trends there. Kind of hard to know which way to go. In terms of the side in this game, guys, we've got some big trends here backing up Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish are 12-1 against the spread in their last 13 games as favorites against ranked opponents. So that's pretty nice. We also see Louisville is 1-4 in their last 5 September games against ranked opponents. So those trends both definitely pointing to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and I like them -6.5 in this game, a very reasonable amount. I think they're going to be able to move the ball enough here against a pretty suspect Louisville defense, and the Louisville offense, I don't think they're going to have a very good time at all. Notre Dame's defense is absolutely top tier. I think they're going to make things really tough out there on the Cardinals. So give me Notre Dame in terms of the side in this one, and if you're begging me for an over-under play in this one, I think I side slightly towards the under, but really not an over-under spot that I'm very interested in. Hey guys, jumping in here with a quick ad break. First of all, this is a great time to sign up at StumpTheSpread.com. Signing up for a premium membership gets you access to our entire team of cappers covering MLB, NCAA Football, UFC, and the NFL. If you just want to test out the service, a great way to do that is by joining our free email list, which will get you the occasional free or premium pick straight to your inbox. Just to clarify some of the questions we've been getting, I'm not the NCAA Football capper for StumpTheSpread.com. These YouTube picks are obviously free to everyone and are just what I'm seeing out there. We have an expert with nearly 15 years of experience that covers NCAA football, and the research he puts in keeping track of all of these teams is actually wild. His in-depth knowledge has made college football one of our most profitable sports, bringing tons of value to our premium members. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new, and become a channel member for early access to all of our NCAA football and NFL videos. Now, guys, back to the games. Next on the docket, guys, we're looking at the Louisiana Raging Cajuns going on the road to take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. This game, we see the Cajuns coming into this one fresh off of a 41-33 loss to Tulane last week. They won their first two opening games against Grambling and Kennesaw State, but yeah, could not figure it out there against the Green Wave. Louisiana in that game, I mean, they scored 33 points, but the passing game, Ben Woodbridge didn't have a great time, got picked off twice, only completed 19 to 34 passes. He did have 2 passing touchdowns, but yeah, just not quite enough. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground, so that's nice, but 10 rushes for 29 yards, just not, I mean, he had a good game. I guess you take everything overall into consideration, but the passing game definitely left something to be desired. The running game looked very, very good. Maybe it's time for Louisiana to focus a little bit more on the run. We'll see if they can pull that out here against Wake Forest, but yeah, just not a team that I was super impressed, in terms of offense last week. They also really could not stop the run from Tulane. Tulane ended up with 272 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. They were just down there ready to grind it out, get that win however they needed to, and they got it by running the ball over and over again. And yeah, Louisiana just did not have a lot of great answers. So yeah, the Cajuns, not a team that I have a ton of aspirations for this season, especially if they can't figure out some run defense here, and this could end up being a tough spot for them going up against Wake Forest. The Demon Deacons come into this game. They've played a pretty rough schedule so far. They had a week 1 cupcake game, then they played against UVA, a game they lost by only a single point. Definitely could have came away with that win. Last week, though, kind of a different situation. They got obliterated by number 5 Ole Miss. They lost 40-6 in that game. Not a very fun time for Wake Forest in that one, guys. They couldn't really, I mean, the passing game was okay. They couldn't get the running game going, and that was the main problem. Just a big talent gap in this game. Yeah, I mean, Ty Clark, 8 carries, 41 yards. He did what he could, but they were down so much they had to try to pass the ball. They had trouble getting it into the end zone, though. It was a very, very rough game. The defense got a little bit tortured there by the run and didn't have an amazing time against the pass. They did generate 2 turnovers in the game, so at least that's some positive to look at, but really just not in the same class there as Ole Miss. So they should be much more at home going up against a team like this one. Going up against a team like Louisiana should be much more in their powerhouse, and they had a good game against UVA there in week 2. I mean, they should have won that game. Giving up a lead there to lose, give like 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to lose by 1 point is really, really rough. We saw the passing game look great in that game. We saw the running game look solid as well. So I think we could see more of that from Wake Forest in this one. And looking at the numbers for this game, guys, we see Louisiana, Wake Forest, they are -3.5. So Louisiana, 3.5 point underdogs. We've got an over/under of 60.5. That is an awful lot of points in this game. If you ask me, in terms of the trends here, Louisiana 1-2 against the spread, 2-1 to the under. Wake Forest 2-1 against the spread, and 2-1 to the over. Wake Forest, they're very good at home. They're 12-1 straight up against non-conference opponents when they're playing at home. And I know this isn't a straight up game, and I'm going to be taking it against the spread, but 3.5 points, not that many. I think we see Wake Forest come out and dominate this game. I think they'll be able to run the ball when they want to. I think they'll be able to do pretty much whatever they want to do out there on offense, and I think their defense is good enough to slow down Louisiana. So go ahead and give me the Demon Deacons here at -3.5. I think it's a relatively good spot. It would have been nice to get it under that number of 3, or to at least avoid that hook of 3.5. So if you shop around out there, maybe you could find 3s, but give me, I think 3.5 is totally fine. Give me Wake Forest to get the win and cover in this one. In terms of the over/under, 60.5 seems like a ton of points to me. I would shade a bit towards that under. Moving right along here, guys, we're looking at the TCU Horned Frogs going on the road to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. TCU has not had a very good start to their season, not having a lot of fun out there. They're 2-2 overall. They lost in week 3 against UCF in a nail biter, losing 35-34, and then they lost last week at SMU in a track meet, 66-42 loss there for the Horned Frogs in that one. So pretty rough stuff there. Not the start they had imagined to their season. Last week against SMU, they put up lots of offensive numbers. Obviously, the problem was the defense could not get a stop. We saw Josh Hoover. He passed for nearly 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, but got picked off twice, so that's a bit of a tough look. And overall, guys, TCU turned the ball over 3 times, so gonna need to clean that up a little bit. The running game also is pretty much abandoned. Seems like you might have wanted to control the tempo in a game where you allowed your opponent to score 66 points. Maybe want to try to give your defense a little bit of a breather, but maybe they couldn't, guys. 32 rush attempts, 65 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns on the ground, but yeah, obviously not having a great time in the running game. Obviously, the wide receivers looked nuts out there, so that's some positives to look at, but really the defense has to figure something out. They could not stop the run in that game. They gave up 3 rushing touchdowns to Brashard Smith, and yeah, 238 yards on the ground. Gonna need to work on that. They also really couldn't slow down the pass when they wanted to pass it either. So yeah, definitely a big bounce back spot here for TCU after a very rough game last week, and this should be a better team than they've shown so far. We'll see if they can figure it out here. They're going up against the Kansas Jayhawks, who also haven't had a great start. They're 1-3 overall. They lost by 4 points last week at West Virginia. Week before that, they lost by 3 points to UNLV. This team has just been losing some very, very close games. Really tough out there, guys. Last week against West Virginia, they just couldn't figure it out there at the very end. They gave up 15 points in the fourth quarter to lose that quarter 7-15. Rough stuff there. We saw Jalen Daniels, only 184 passing yards, so that's a bit rough, and he only rushed for 11 yards. The running game, they were really dedicated to it, 247 yards on 47 carries, so, got some work done there on the ground, but they just couldn't do enough to slow down that West Virginia running game, and they also struggled a bit against the pass. They did, on defense, generate 3 turnovers, so that's pretty nice. Definitely something positive to look at, but the defense hasn't been the problem for Kansas, in my opinion, this year, guys. It's more been that offense, and they have some work to do, some things to figure out for sure. So looking at the numbers for this game, we see TCU at +2.5, the Jayhawks 2.5-point favorites playing at home. We got an over-under of 59.5 in this game. In the trends for this one, TCU comes into this one 0-4 against the spread this season, but 3-1 to the over. Kansas is also 0-4 against the spread and 3-1 to the under. Guys, I'm leaning towards TCU getting 2.5 points here on the road. I think this could be a fairly close game. Kansas is good on defense, but I think TCU definitely has everything they need to, keep this game very, very close or probably come away with a straight-up win. So if you wanted to take them on the money line, I wouldn't be too mad at that. I'm going to go ahead and snag those 2.5 points and keep an eye out. This could, get a little bit more traction there. We could possibly see, them get to +3 or something like that. But really, I think 2 + 2.5 is just fine in this one. And in terms of that over-under, guys, I think we could see a slightly more low-scoring competitive game. So I would aim a bit towards under 59.5. But my main lean in this one definitely going to be TCU and the points. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the Colorado Buffaloes going on the road to take on the UCF Knights, guys. Colorado comes into this game fresh off of a miraculous win last week over Baylor. They won 38-31 on that last-second Hail Mary. They're now 3-1 on the season, but their best opponent they played so far was Nebraska, and they lost that game 28-10 in a game that wasn't even that close. So definitely a team with some question marks. Last week against Baylor, guys, we obviously saw some positive things. Sanders passed for 2 touchdowns, 341 yards. He keeps doing his thing, but only completing 25 of 41 passes, maybe not ideal. And he ran the ball 19 times for only 26 yards. So clearly we still have major issues there on this offensive line. They cannot run the ball effectively, and Sanders has to do everything out there with his arm and his legs, really. And yeah, we got Travis Hunter looking like a monster in the passing game, but he's only one guy. So definitely some question marks there. In terms of the defense, they didn't have any great answers there to the Baylor running game, and that's not going to get any easier here down the stretch. And they really didn't do that great against the passing game either, and they generated a grand total of 0 turnovers in that game. So definitely some questions about Colorado. Seems like a team that's going to beat up on the bad teams and have a lot of trouble against the good teams, and I don't even think that would put Baylor in the category of good teams, and obviously it took a miracle for them to win that one. So big concerns for me here against Colorado as they go up against UCF. The Knights come into this game undefeated on the season. They just won last week against TCU 35-34, so obviously a very close win, but UCF looking like a real team out there in the Big 12 in that win at TCU. Very solid to go on the road there and get the win at TCU, I will have to say. KJ Jefferson had a great time passing the ball last week for UCF. 230 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. UCF did not turn the ball over that entire game, and they really won that one thanks to being able to just run the ball like crazy, guys. 289 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground on 54 carries. absolute domination out there by RJ Harvey. So very, very good stuff there. They did struggle a bit on defense against the pass, so that's a concern for sure going up against a team that's really going to want to pass the ball. But hey, they can control the clock. They can control the time of possession by running the ball, and that's definitely something that's going to be high on their priority list. So definitely liking what I'm seeing from UCF coming into this game. I think they are another opponent that could give the kind of overhyped Colorado team a lot of trouble. 14 points does seem like a lot, but Colorado's only 2-2 against the spread this year and 2-2 to the over/under. UCF is 3-0 against the spread this year and 2-0-1 to the over. Guys, I'm going to be trending a lot here towards UCF at -14. I'm not sure if this one's going to make it into the pin comment. Maybe if we get down to like 13, it would have a better chance, but I think they are going to dominate the time of possession in this game. I don't think Colorado is going to play very well at all here on the road. In terms of the over/under, I would shade a bit towards the over. I think we'll see plenty of offense in this game, but I think a lot of it is going to come from the UCF Knights. I think they are going to really take it to Colorado in this one. Next on the docket, we've got the number 21 Oklahoma Sooners going on the road to take on the Auburn Tigers. Oklahoma comes into this game 3-1 on the year. They played a tough game against Tennessee last week. Number 6 Tennessee looking like one of the best teams in the nation, so a tough matchup there for sure, especially for that to be their first real test of the season. And yeah, they came up 10 points short. A lot of people cashed in on that one, including yours truly, so we'll definitely take that. Last week against Tennessee, it wasn't all doom and gloom out there for Oklahoma. They did do some positive things. Obviously, Michael Hawkins Jr., you'd like to see him pass for more than 132 yards, but he had a passing touchdown. Jackson Arnold getting picked off was not a great look, and the big problem there was their running game completely unable to get off the ground. 34 carries, 36 yards. There was a -21 in there from Jackson Arnold, so yeah, thanks for that, bud. But yeah, a bit of a rough look. They turned the ball over 3 times in the game. Not something you're going to be able to do against a top 10 opponent. It's going to be pretty rough to turn the ball over 3 times and expect to come away with a win. So rough stuff there. There were some bright spots on defense. They gave up less than 200 yards passing. They did get gouged by the running game a bit, but they made Tennessee pay for it. I mean, only 151 yards on 52 carries. They made them really have to grind it out. So definitely some positives to look at for Oklahoma in what was really their first true test of the season. So we're going to see what they can do here going up against a very solid Auburn squad who comes into this game 2-2 on the season, fresh off of a tough 24-14 loss against Arkansas. They haven't had the greatest start to their season, guys. They've really only won their cupcake games. The losses that they've had have been very close, losing 21-14 against Cal and 24-14 against Arkansas. We didn't obviously love what we saw from Auburn in that one. I mean, how much can you love a game where you lose? But we did see Peyton Thorne look better in the passing game. We saw the running game look pretty good. The problem was the defense couldn't really stop the run. So they're going to have to find a way to stop the run, but they're going up against an Oklahoma team that isn't exactly elite at running the ball. So looking at the numbers for this one, Auburn's 1.5 point favorites. We've got an over/under of 45 in this one. Oklahoma 3-1 to the under this year. Both teams 2-2 against the spread. Guys, I'm going to be leaning towards Auburn at -1.5 in this one. I think their strengths match up well with the weaknesses of Oklahoma, and yeah, if Auburn can't stop the run, that's fine. Oklahoma can't run the ball anyway, so go ahead and give me the Auburn Tigers at home in this game. I think they find a way to come away with the win. Next on the docket, guys, we've got number 3 Ohio State going on the road to take on Michigan State. Ohio State undefeated so far this year, but they haven't really faced any significant tests. I mean, Akron, WMU, Marshall, these are not real contender teams, and the Ohio State Buckeyes hope that they are a legitimate contender, guys. I mean, last week against Marshall, things looked very, very easy in that 49-14 win. Will Howard passed the ball great. He did get picked off once, so that's something to take into consideration, but the running game for Ohio State was fully online, 280 yards on 31 carries and 5 rushing touchdowns. So yeah, no complaints there. The defense also looked good, so very, very solid stuff. They have to be pretty hyped up coming into their first kind of test. I'm not going to say this is a huge test here. I mean, they're 23.5 point favorites in this game, so obviously heavily favored to come away with a win here against Michigan State that just took their first loss of the season last week, losing at Boston College 23-19. So a tough look there. I mean, obviously Boston College, not a bad team, and keeping things close is, respectable. They do have a win over Maryland earlier this season, so they've played some competition, but nothing like what they're about to see from Ohio State. In that loss last week against Boston College, they just couldn't quite, come away with it at the end, and the problem was their passing game, guys. We saw their starting quarterback, 3 interceptions in that game. Very, very rough stuff. The running game looked good, but you can't turn the ball over 4 times in a game and expect to come away with very many wins. So looking at the numbers for this one, guys, Ohio State comes into this one massive favorites, 23.5-point favorites. We've got an over-under of 48.5 in this game. Ohio State 1-2 against the spread, but 3-0 to the over this year. Michigan State 1-2-1 against the spread and 3-1 to the under this season. Michigan State, got to figure out this turnover issue. Ohio State poised to make things tough on them. The over seems like the play to me in this one, guys. I think we're going to see Ohio State come out and put up a ton of points. I think Michigan State will get on the board, probably score 10, maybe something like that. And I think that'll be all that it takes for us to get to the over, because I think Ohio State probably going to score at least 40 points of their own in this game. So yeah, the over is going to be my play on this one. If you're begging me for a look at the side, I would probably go with Ohio State, but it's not my favorite spot. Next on the docket, we're looking at the Stanford Cardinals going on the road to take on the number 17 Clemson Tigers. Stanford comes into this game. They lost their season opener against TCU. Their last game, though, was at Syracuse, and they were pretty good winning that one 26-24. But Stanford, not exactly a team that I think is poised for some sort of amazing season, and neither is Syracuse, the team that they beat. So we'll see what they can do in this one going up against Clemson. I mean, last week against Syracuse, very, very close game, late game heroics and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Stanford's, Ashton Daniels, guys, he passed for only 178 yards, managed to get picked off twice. The running game was what kind of won them this one. Pretty solid stuff there, but they're going to be going up against a whole different level of defensive talent. We didn't see them look incredible on defense. They did have 2 interceptions in the game, but they also, I guess we have to give them credit for shutting down the run there, but they couldn't really stop the pass except for those couple of interceptions. So they're going to have their work cut out for them going up against Clemson in this one, who come into this game fresh off of destroying NC State 59-35. They've looked like a team on the mission after their week 1 embarrassment at the hands of Georgia. They've been killing it over the last couple weeks. Definitely still some work to do for this team, especially on defense, giving up 35 points last week. Not the best look, but Cade Klubnik looked very, very good. 3 touchdowns, 209 yards, did not turn the ball over, and he also scored a running touchdown. The running game looked very, very good for Clemson, and so did the passing game. The problem was their defense. They did generate 1 turnover in the game, but that's pretty much the only positive when you give up 35 points. So looking at the numbers for this one, guys, we see Stanford, they're plus 21.5, Clemson minus 21.5, over under of 57.5 points for this game. Stanford 2-1 against the spread, 2-1 to the over. Clemson 2-1 against the spread and 2-1 to the under. I'm not sure if Clemson's good enough on defense to win this game by more than 3 scores. That seems like a bit of a big ask to me, but Stanford didn't really impress me too much last week. I think this could be something of a, maybe not a get-right spot for Clemson since they're coming off of a win, but this is a team that has to be very, very motivated, stay motivated throughout the season. I think Dabo Swinney will keep them that way. Go ahead and give me the Clemson Tigers minus 21.5 in this game, and if you're begging me for a look at the over-under, guys, I think I would side slightly towards the over in this one, but yeah, probably not my favorite spot for the over-under. Next on the docket, guys, we've got the marquee game of the day. We've got the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs going on the road to take on the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a matchup of unbeaten teams, guys. Georgia comes into this game 3-0 thanks to a incredible escape there last week against Kentucky, guys. It was at Kentucky. They won that game 13-12. 13-12. Very, very scary stuff there. Georgia definitely could have ended up losing that game well within the range of what could have happened, guys. I mean, the passing game looked non-existent. The running game struggled. Only 30 carries for 102 yards and 1 touchdown that they desperately, desperately needed. Yeah, Carson Beck did not have a great game. The defense really held things down. I mean, only giving up 12 points there. Obviously, an elite defense from Georgia, but they struggled a little bit against the run, and they didn't do a good job of generating turnovers. They did generate 1 fumble recovery, so that was obviously huge, but not a banner day there for Georgia at all. They struggled a lot in that game, so we'll see if they can bounce back here a little bit. Obviously a big this isn't a get-right spot, guys. This is going to be one of their toughest games of the season going up against Alabama, who's 3-0 on the season. They're a little bit untested. I mean, Western Kentucky, a blowout win in week 1, blowing out USF in week 2, and then destroying Wisconsin last week, 42-10 at Wisconsin. So very, very good stuff there. Seems like things are going to be okay here in the post-Nick Saban era. Last week at Wisconsin, obviously in that blowout win, we saw very, very good stuff, as you would kind of expect. I mean, Jalen Milroe, very good out there, 12 of 17, nearly 200 yards passing and 3 passing touchdowns. He also ran for 2 more touchdowns. This dude is looking absolutely dynamic. Will he be able to look that dynamic against this Georgia defense? Remains to be seen. Obviously, that is a pretty big ask. I mean, J.M. Miller looked very good in the running game as well, and generally speaking, that Alabama running game looked like it was well online. They just did a really good job, and they were great on defense too. This is going to be a very, very good defensive team. They forced 3 turnovers in the game, so expecting good stuff from them in this one. And looking at the numbers for this game, guys, very, very tightly projected game. We've got Alabama getting 2.5 points at home. We've got an over-under of 49.5 out there in this game. Georgia 1-2 against the spread, 3-0 to the under this season. Alabama 2-1 against the spread and 2-1 to the over this year. Alabama has looked insane to me so far this year, guys. The fact that they're getting points at home against a team that almost lost to Kentucky, I don't care that it's Georgia. I know it was a big letdown game or something, I guess. I don't know. They just looked terrible. It did not look good. The offense looked so bad. They're going up against at least as good of a defense in this one, I think. So, guys, give me Alabama plus 2.5 in this game. Definitely going in the pinned comment. I think this is an excellent play. I also could be talked into putting the under 49.5 in the pinned comment for this game as well. I think we're going to see a defensive run-focused game here that's going to be very, very low scoring. So, yeah, give me plus 2.5 and give me the under in this game. I think both are excellent plays. Moving right along here, guys, we've got another game between ranked opponents. We've got number 19 Illinois going on the road to take on number 9 Penn State. Illinois comes into this game fresh off of a big win for them. They went on the road to Nebraska, number 22 Nebraska, or then 22, and got the 31-24 win. That's their second win this season over a ranked opponent. Very, very good stuff so far this year from the Fighting Illini. Obviously, that week 2 win over Kansas was very nice, although it's losing a little bit of its shine as Kansas continues to struggle. But Illinois looked very good last week against Nebraska. We saw Altmaier look good out there, 215 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in the game. Obviously, that was a tough one against Nebraska going into overtime, but they found a way there. The running game looked good as well, 166 yards on the ground on 39 carries. Obviously, not the easiest time, but that's a decent Nebraska defense over there. So got to give them some credit. They, this a very good game. This is just a very, very good, relatively clean game there from Illinois. The defense looked pretty good. They looked a little bit vulnerable to the pass. They really stopped the running game, though, which is going to be huge here going up against Penn State. So Illinois got to feel good about that one, only giving up 48 running yards on 33 attempts against Nebraska. So we'll see if they can replicate a little bit of that here going on the road to take on Penn State. Obviously not going to be the easiest place to play there. Penn State comes into this game 3-0 on the season, but a little bit untested. I think probably their toughest opponent so far this year would have been West Virginia, but they struggled against BGSU in week 2. A little bit embarrassing there to have such a tough game against Bowling Green. They ended up winning it 34-27, but man, felt like it could go either way, especially there in a very, very tight first half. The Penn State defense did buckle down in the second half and got the job done, but man, that was a bit of a rough one. Last week against Kent State, obviously that was just a walkover game. Not even going to review the stats. Not worth it to review the stats on that one, but in their week 1 win over West Virginia, obviously that was week 1. They went on the road for that one and they looked pretty good. The passing game looked like it was online. The running game was good, but they're going up against a pretty tough running defense in this game. And while the Penn State defense is also good, Illinois has been showing the ability to move the ball through the air and on the ground. So looking at the numbers for this game, guys, we've got Illinois getting 18 points. They're plus 18 in this one. Penn State, obviously playing at home, helps them. We've got an over-under of 47.5 in this game. Illinois, guys, is 3-0-1 against the spread this season. They are 3-1 to the under. Penn State, 2-1 against the spread and 2-1 to the under. Guys, this is another spot that we definitely want to look at both. I'm going to for sure be on Illinois and the points. I think 18 points is way too many in a game where both teams are looking solid. Both teams are going to want to run the ball. Both teams are good on defense. So I definitely am going to be on the points in this game. It seems extremely reasonable to me. I also think under 47.5 here with these trends makes some sense to me. I mean, the under is 6-0 in the last 6 home games against conference opponents there for Illinois. So that's something to take into consideration. So definitely going to be on Illinois and the points in this one. Will we get the under in the pin comment? Seems unlikely, but Illinois and the points definitely going in there. Rounding into the home stretch here, guys, we've got the Florida State Seminoles going on the road to take on the SMU Mustangs. Florida State comes into this game only 1-3 on the season. They did win last week in a crazy low-scoring game against Cal. They went 14-9 in that one. So yeah, pretty crazy to see a final score like that in college football. But Florida State hasn't had the best season overall. Last week against Cal, obviously it has to feel great to get off the schneid there, get your first win of the season. But passing game didn't look amazing. They had one interception. They didn't turn the ball over besides that, so that's nice. And they concentrated on the running game, but really, guys, less than 300 total yards of offense in the game for Florida State. Can't feel great. They gave up over 400 yards of offense, so honestly, they've got to feel a little bit lucky to escape that game with a win. Florida State hasn't been terrible defensively, obviously having a good game last week, giving up only 9 points. 9, 12, or 9, 20, 28, and 24 points this season. Not terrible, but it's not like they faced the toughest opponents either. So the Florida State team, not really one that I'm super excited about. Lots and lots and lots of areas that they need to improve if they're going to end up with a good season here, trying to make a bowl game or anything like that. Going to be very, very rough for this team. I mean, really just seem like they kind of lack talent, maybe even on both sides of the ball, but I would say primarily on offense. So we'll see what they can get done here going up against SMU. The Mustangs come to this game 3-1 on the season, fresh off of a blowout win. Well, I mean, I don't know, a 66-42 win there over TCU. Their only loss this season was a 3-point nail-biter against BYU, a game that they played pretty well in, to be honest, and just came up a little bit short. BYU looking like a pretty tough team. SMU in that game, they did generate 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries, so very, very good in that game. But yeah, their passing game just isn't looking great. They're relying very, very heavily on the run. Will they be able to run the ball here against Florida State? That remains to be seen. I mean, last week against TCU is a completely different story, obviously scoring 66 points. Yeah, it was the running game once again, though, guys. 42 carries, 238 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns through the air. They were absolutely dominating that pretty suspect TCU defense. So we'll see if they can do that here against Florida State. Definitely a much better defensive team than TCU. Looking at the numbers for this game, we've got the Mustangs at home. They're 6.5-point favorites. Florida State 1-3 against the spread this season and 4-0 to the under. SMU 2-2 against the spread and 2-2 over under this season. SMU, guys, that is for sure going to be our lean. They are 10-0 in their last 10 games against conference opponents. We also see that they are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games at home. And Florida State, they are only 1-4 in their last 5 games against the spread. So yeah, very concerning stuff there for Florida State. We're going with the Mustangs in this game. This -6.5 has a great chance to end up in the pinned comment. And if you wanted to go under 47.5, I could probably get behind that too. Last but not least, guys, we've got a late game out there between Arizona and Utah. Number 10, Utah. Arizona comes into this game fresh off of a tough loss against Kansas State. They got blown out 31-7. Really, really a big kick in the nads there for Arizona, who had a lot higher aspirations this season than it looks like they were quite ready for. Obviously, losing 31-7, really, really tough. Passing game could not get going. No touchdowns, 1 interception, completing around half your passes. Not a great day. And the running game also couldn't get online either. Not that they were able to give that many rushing attempts to the team, to the running back core, because they were down so bad. But yeah, rough stuff out there. The defense obviously did not have a good time either. They couldn't stop the run. They did okay against the pass, I suppose, but yeah, giving up 156 yards, 14 of 23, and 2 touchdowns. A little bit rough. They also struggled against a mobile quarterback, so that's not the best look either, but it's not like they could stop the regular running game either. Just a lot of negatives for Arizona in that one, so we'll see if they can bounce back here. Obviously, a huge bounce back spot for them, but they're going up against a tough opponent in the number 10 Utah Utes, who are 4-0 coming into this game, fresh off of a very close 22-19 win on the road at number 14 Oklahoma State. So a very good road win there for the Utes for sure. Obviously, they're going to be hoping to build on that a little bit. 4-0 on the season has to feel great. Being ranked in the top 10 in the nation has to feel great as well. Last week, they won that game despite Isaac Wilson not having the best game throwing the ball. Only one touchdown, 2 interceptions, 17 of 29 for 207 yards. Not ideal. The running game did look good, though. I mean, Micah Bernard, 25 carries, 182 yards. Very, very good stuff there. So they're going to be looking to run the ball in this game for sure. And I do think Arizona is certainly a team, at least based off of their last game, that you can definitely run the ball against. Defensively, they did a good job generating 2 interceptions. They also held down the running game, so that's a good look as well. And just a lot of good stuff to look at for Utah as they, get here into the beginning of their season, looking like they are absolutely ready to go. So look at the numbers for this game. The Utes are significant favorites, -8.5 in this one. We've got an over-under of 47.5. Arizona 0-3 against the spread this season, 2-1 to the under. Utah 2-2 against the spread and 3-1 to the under themselves. The under, to be honest, looks like the play in this one to me, guys. I would also maybe lean slightly towards Utah at home. It feels a little bit weird to take that and the under, though. So I would say this is a pick one or the other situation. And I do think Utah is probably going to run the ball and control the clock in this game. The question is, what kind of bounce back performance are we going to get from Arizona? So this one probably won't be going into the pinned comment, but like I was saying, guys, the Utes at -8.5 and the under seem reasonable to me. That's all the games we have for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all of your bets and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for more sports betting action.